Long before wedding rings, white dresses, or written vows, two people stood before their families and made a promise that could shape the future of an entire community. There were no official ceremonies, no marriage certificates, and no legal contracts. Yet these unions mattered so deeply that they influenced survival, alliances, inheritance, and even the rise of civilizations. Marriage didn't begin as a celebration. It began as a solution to one of humanity's oldest challenges: how to build stable families in an unpredictable world. It's tempting to imagine prehistoric romance looking much like modern love stories, only with caves instead of houses. The reality was far more complex. Ancient humans lived in environments where every decision carried consequences. Food was uncertain, predators were everywhere, and raising children required enormous effort. Under those conditions, choosing a lifelong partner wasn't simply a personal matter. It affected everyone around them. Among early hunter-gatherers, marriages were likely informal by today's standards. There were no governments to recognize unions, no priests to officiate ceremonies, and no universal rules followed by every tribe. Instead, marriage was usually acknowledged by the community itself. When two people began living together, sharing responsibilities, and raising children, the group recognized them as a family. But reaching that point often involved much more than mutual attraction. Anthropologists studying traditional hunter-gatherer societies have found that marriages frequently connected families rather than just individuals. A union created new partnerships, strengthened trust, reduced conflict, and expanded networks of cooperation. In a world where survival depended on sharing food and helping one another, these relationships were incredibly valuable. Choosing a partner from another group also reduced the dangers of close family relationships. Long before anyone understood genetics, human communities gradually recognized that bringing outsiders into the tribe produced healthier descendants. Over thousands of generations, customs encouraging marriages beyond immediate relatives became increasingly common in many societies. Not every marriage began with romance. Some were arranged through discussions between families. Others developed naturally as young people spent time together during seasonal gatherings, celebrations, or exchanges between neighboring groups. Exactly how much choice individuals had depended greatly on time, place, and culture. Human history has never followed a single rulebook. What remained surprisingly consistent was the importance of commitment. Children require years of care, far longer than the offspring of most mammals. Human babies are born remarkably helpless, demanding constant protection, food, and attention. Raising them successfully often required cooperation between parents, grandparents, relatives, and the wider community. Marriage became one way of organizing that cooperation. Instead of temporary partnerships, stable family units increased the chances that children would survive into adulthood. In evolutionary terms, that stability carried enormous advantages. As societies grew larger and farming replaced hunting in many regions, marriage changed dramatically. Agriculture introduced something previous generations rarely possessed in large quantities: property. Fields, livestock, houses, irrigation systems, and stored grain suddenly had owners. Families now needed ways to decide who inherited these valuable resources. Marriage became closely connected to economics, inheritance, and social status. Parents increasingly viewed marriage not only as a family milestone, but also as an opportunity to strengthen wealth and influence. This shift transformed ceremonies themselves. Simple community recognition gradually evolved into elaborate rituals filled with symbolism. Public celebrations allowed everyone to witness the union, reducing future disputes over inheritance or family responsibilities. Witnesses mattered because they gave marriages social legitimacy long before written records existed. Many customs we still recognize today have surprisingly ancient roots. Gift exchanges between families existed in countless early societies. Sometimes the groom's family offered valuable goods to demonstrate their ability to provide. Elsewhere, the bride's family contributed property or resources to help establish the new household. Although these traditions varied widely, they reflected the same underlying reality. Marriage wasn't only emotional, it was practical. Ancient weddings also featured music, dancing, feasts, and shared meals. These celebrations weren't simply entertainment. They announced that two families now belonged to one another. Every guest became a witness to that new relationship. Religion later added another dimension. As belief systems became more organized, many cultures began viewing marriage as sacred rather than merely social. Gods, ancestors, or divine forces were believed to bless the union. Breaking those commitments no longer affected only families. It carried spiritual consequences as well. Yet despite these changing customs, one question remains surprisingly difficult to answer. Did ancient humans marry for love? The honest answer is yes and no. Love certainly existed long before civilization. Human brains produce emotional bonds through hormones like oxytocin and dopamine, encouraging long-term attachment between partners. These biological systems evolved long before written history. But love wasn't always the primary reason for marriage. In many ancient societies, affection often grew after marriage rather than before it. Practical concerns, survival, security, family expectations, and social stability frequently came first. That doesn't mean people lacked deep emotional connections. It simply means those emotions existed within very different social structures than many people experience today. Archaeology occasionally offers touching glimpses into those relationships. Some prehistoric graves contain couples buried side by side, carefully positioned together in death. Others reveal individuals buried with meaningful objects believed to symbolize personal relationships. While we can't know every story, these discoveries remind us that ancient people experienced attachment, grief, and devotion just as profoundly as we do. Marriage also varied enormously around the world. Some cultures practiced monogamy. Others accepted polygamy under specific conditions. Certain societies allowed divorce relatively easily, while others made separation extremely difficult. Customs reflected local environments, available resources, religious beliefs, and cultural traditions rather than any universal human rule. One of the greatest misconceptions about ancient marriage is that it remained unchanged for thousands of years. In reality, it constantly evolved. As trade expanded, cities grew, laws developed, and religions spread, marriage adapted alongside them. What worked for a small Ice Age hunting band differed dramatically from what worked in an agricultural kingdom or a bustling ancient empire. Yet across every version, one idea endured. Marriage created trust beyond the individual. It connected generations, linked families, organized responsibilities, and gave children a stable place within society. Without systems like these, building larger communities would have been far more difficult. Perhaps that's why nearly every civilization developed its own form of marriage, even if the details looked completely different. Humans discovered that surviving wasn't only about finding food or shelter. It was about creating lasting relationships. The first marriages were never defined by rings, paperwork, or expensive ceremonies. Those came much later. What truly mattered was the promise recognized by a community, that two people would face life's uncertainties together, support future generations, and strengthen the people around them. Marriage also served another purpose that often goes unnoticed. It reduced uncertainty. In small prehistoric communities, everyone depended on everyone else. If a hunter was injured, someone had to help feed his family. If a mother died during childbirth, relatives or other women in the group often helped raise the child. A recognized marriage created clear expectations about responsibility. People knew who belonged together, who would care for children, and who could be relied upon during times of hardship. That sense of stability became increasingly important as human communities grew larger. In many regions, reaching adulthood itself was marked through rituals before marriage was even considered. Young men might prove themselves through successful hunts, endurance trials, or demonstrations of skill. Young women often participated in ceremonies celebrating their transition into adulthood, preparing them for new responsibilities within the community. These rites differed from culture to culture, but they shared a common purpose. They publicly acknowledged that an individual was ready to take on the obligations of family life. Marriage also became a way of preserving culture. Parents passed hunting techniques, farming knowledge, songs, beliefs, and traditions to their children, but those lessons were usually taught within families. Every new household became another link connecting one generation to the next. Long before books existed, families acted as living libraries, carrying thousands of years of accumulated knowledge through spoken stories and daily practice. Although the customs varied across continents and thousands of years, one pattern appears again and again in archaeological and anthropological research. Marriage was never just about two individuals. It was one of humanity's earliest social institutions, quietly shaping everything from survival and cooperation to inheritance and the growth of civilization. Without those enduring family bonds, many of the world's earliest villages, kingdoms, and cultures may never have become stable enough to flourish.